Hey everyone, it's Andrea, and welcome to Scenes Out of Place. If you don't know, I have a short story book called Scenes Out of Place, where I have multiple stories that feature zombies, dragons, and surviving in space. And there are a couple more ideas that might fit into those worlds, but don't necessarily need a whole new book. So I'm bringing them to you in an audio edition. So sit back and enjoy some of the stories that didn't make it to the final edition, but still need to exist. What would you do with that information? What do you do with it? How am I supposed to move forward with it? I thought for days about what Claire told me about Henderson Village's version of Blue Crab Cove, because that's not the story my grandmother told me. That's not the story she grew up with. That is not the story my family has held on to for generations. The story I have held on to. The story I believed. The story I've dreamt of. Because Blue Crab Cove is a home. It's a beautiful coastal village. It's not something that people were afraid of, right? I don't I don't know what to do. Not really. But I need more information. It just, if I'm being honest, never dawned on me that the information I would find would be bad, that I might find something that would hurt my grandmother more than helped her. She was so young when she left Blue Crab Cove, and she saw things through a child's eye, and she filtered them the way a child would. She didn't see everything. She didn't know everything, and now I need to know more. I can't end it here. I couldn't go back to her and tell her that I stopped looking just because the people of Henderson Village didn't agree with the history my grandmother carried. So I asked myself, what's my next move? Like, what do I even do? And then it hit me. There are people out there who don't want this town found. People from Henderson, which means people from Henderson probably know what happened to it. Because if you don't want anyone looking for the truth, it's because you know the truth and you want to keep it hidden, right? And maybe even now, they might know how to find it. So I decided I have to go back and talk to Clara to see if she would get me in touch with anyone else in the village who might tell me the truth. I I honestly don't care if they don't want to speak to me about it because it's my family history too, and I have a right to know it. So I drove back to Henderson Village a second time. And this time, I didn't let the coastal drive distract me or the quaintness or cuteness of the town distract me. I was focused. I had to talk to Clara. So I found her at that cafe where I had my lunch. And I don't think it was luck. I think she was waiting for me because she didn't look surprised when I walked in. But she did look tired. That tired people look when they've been up all night mulling something over in their head, trying to decide where they wanted to go with it. That's that's how she looked. She said, "So, you came back?" And I told her, "Of course." I needed to know the truth. And she was quiet for a second and told me that I can't unring this bell if I don't like what I hear. And I told her it didn't matter. I needed the truth. So she led me out of the cafe to her car and told me to get in. And I'll be honest with you, every instinct I had told me not to get into a stranger's car in a town that already told me more than once to leave things alone. And here I was, not leaving them alone. But I got in anyway because I needed to know the truth. Because my grandmother deserves the truth, whether we like the outcome or not. So she drove for maybe 15 minutes until we were outside of town, down a road I hadn't driven by before, to a house set off the water. It was small, the kind of house that you don't go there to admire it, you go to admire the view. Because the view of that ocean from that point was spectacular. It was all you could see for miles. Inside, there were 3 people waiting for me. A man in his 80s, a woman around my mother's age, and a younger man who looked around my age, maybe a couple years older. Unlike Clara, they told me I could tell the truth about them because they wanted this secret to no longer be a secret. The older man spoke first. He asked me why I wanted to know about Blue Crab Cove. And I told him it was because my grandmother's from there. It's my family history as well. She is, and an extension, I am, owed the truth. Regardless of what that truth is, we deserve to know. So then he looked to the woman beside him, almost like he was asking for permission, and she nodded. And then he told me that his grandfather was John Henderson. I didn't say anything. He said that he assumes I know the name, and I told him I did, that John founded Henderson Village. And that's when he corrected me. He told me his grandfather didn't found anything. He ran. He told me that when you run far enough and long enough and you try to build something new in a new place, nobody really asks where you came from. And people just started calling it a founding. He told me his grandfather never really talked about Blue Crab Cove, not really in his whole life, except for one time, near the end when he was dying. He wasn't really himself anymore, and that's when the truth came out. He told him about the festival, and I knew about the festival, the seasonal queen. What I didn't know is what the town really held it for. He told me that John said it wasn't really a celebration. Not really. It was a countdown. So every year when it seemed that the nets were a little bit lighter, when the catch was smaller, they would hold the festival and crown their seasonal queen. Except the seasonal queen wasn't just an honor. It was a designation. Once crowned, the queen would choose her court. And her court wasn't an entourage that would follow her around. It was a list. He told me that his grandfather believed, that the people of Blue Crab Cove believed, the ocean had to be paid. That was a very plain way to put it. But according to them, Blue Crab Cove was founded on a deal. For calm waters, for great harvests, for more crabs and fish than any town its size had a right to bring in, there was a price. Because nothing is free, not from the water. Apparently not from whatever was under it. He said the founders of Blue Crab Cove made a promise on its founding that the town would never take more than it needed. That every year they'd give something back. But that thing wasn't crops, wasn't money, it was a person. And then the younger man spoke up. He said they didn't like to call it a sacrifice, even though that's what it was. No, they called it a returning. Like you were returning something that you borrowed, like it was owed back to the original owner. So for them, when the seasonal queen chose her court, she wasn't choosing someone who got hurt or sacrificed. She was choosing those who got returned. Because the town let itself believe that because the ocean crowned her, that the ocean guided her hand, it wasn't murder, it was an arrangement. It was an order. And they were paying the price for the great years the ocean had provided them. So I asked the question, are you serious? Were they just dropping people in the ocean? Like, returned to what? And they just looked at me for a long time. They told me that founder's sister was chosen as a queen's court when she was just 15 years old. Still a child. But she had been chosen by that year's seasonal queen. That's how it worked. They told me that John tried to escape that night with his family, with his sister, but they were blocked because it was an honor. The Hendersons had to watch in horror as the town basically dragged a 15-year-old girl down to the beach. The other honorees were there standing on the edge, proud to be returned. They said that John remembered the singing like it was a holy event. They told me that John had tears in his eyes when he told them that the other members of the court helped drag his little sister into the water, and they went under and never came back. The town celebrated while his sister was being murdered. That's how John remembers it. That's when he left. They told me that while John didn't believe it, he knew the town of Blue Crab Cove believed there was something in that water. Something that someone in that town had made a deal with in the first place. They told me that John knew that while you may not believe in something, that doesn't mean you can't believe that someone else believes in it. And he knew that town believed greatly in whatever they thought was in that water. Some people of Blue Crab Cove called it a spirit. Some people called it the god of tide. John's grandmother, who was a believer at one point, had a different word for it. something that she used to call it before she stopped talking about it altogether. She said it was mermaids, that the cove was full of mermaids. And when I tell you I wanted to laugh, I wanted to laugh because mermaids, mermaids. But I didn't laugh because the look on their faces told me that this is what they believed Blue Crab Cove truly believed. They went on to tell me that it wasn't the type of mermaids we remembered from our childhood that were in picture books, that were friendly people who wanted to just get to know their counterparts on land. No, that these mermaids were darker, angry, spiteful, vengeful. If they made a bargain, you had to keep it. That someone always had to answer for what was given. And the answer was the returnings. They said no one ever knew what happened to the bodies when they were returned back to sea. There was never a scrap, never a piece of cloth found from the court ever again. They believed the mermaids were taking them and using them for their own bountiful harvest. He told me that when John left after his sister was taken, he just walked until he found the area where he founded Henderson Village and built a life where nobody would ask questions. And soon he was joined by other families who left the same way, left one after the other over the years, always after losing someone to the court, after they lost faith in the beauty of Blue Crab Cove. And with that, I understood, because Henderson Village wasn't really founded. It was fled to. People fled to Henderson to escape Blue Crab Cove, to be outside of the reach of the cove. Henderson Village was built by people running from a debt they no longer believed in, according to them. But not everyone left. There was still a vibrant town when my grandmother went to go visit her family. So there were people who stayed, who believed. Regardless if you believe it, there were people there who still believed in it, who thought the ocean had earned its dues, that the town owed everything that it was to the arrangement, to the mermaids, for lack of a better word. Because there were still people who were there when my grandmother was a child. So I asked the only question I had left. What happened to the town? Did they know what happened to it? Where did it go? No one answered right away. Then Clara, who had been quiet while they were imparting this history to me, finally spoke back up. She told me that that was the answer that they didn't know. That no one who came to Henderson, who fled Blue Crab Cove, would speak on where it was, just that their family was affected by the court and needed to leave. And that's all I have right now. I know, it's not enough, right? There needs to be more information, but I don't have anything more. I need to sit in this realization. I know, believe me, I wanted to keep pushing too. I needed to know more, but I could tell this was all they knew. And regardless of how out there this answer is, I know that they believed the people who believed it. And can I say anything different? Because I believed in my grandmother. I believed that this town existed when everyone else in my family said that it didn't. I'm hearing from other people who have interacted with people who lived in Blue Crab Cove, just like I have. The only problem is that their memory isn't as happy as my grandmother's. But I'm not done, because while they may have told me why people fled from Blue Crab Cove, what the seasonal queen really was, I still need to know what actually happened to the town, because it still disappeared. It's not there anymore. But I do know I don't just have my grandmother's story now. I also have theirs. And I hate that they don't cancel each other out, because my grandmother remembers a home, a beautiful festival, an honor. She remembers it exactly the way you would remember something that you might not have ever heard the real truth about. Did my great grandfather know the truth? Is that why he refused to let his family talk about it after the town disappeared? Was he just protecting my grandmother and her siblings from the truth of the town that they loved, that she loved so deeply? I guess from an outsider point of view, returnings, or let's call it what it really was, a sacrifice to a underwater sea creature, could be seen as crazy, right? Do I need to give my great grandfather grace? Do I need to reevaluate how I view my great grandmother? She was crowned seasonal queen one year. She chose a court. She chose the list of people in her life who would go to the sea and never return. Did she know? She had to have known. How do you come to terms with the knowledge that your family history might not be as clean as you want it to be? Because somewhere between my grandmother's memory and her actual family history, there is an answer to what actually happened the week Blue Crab Cove disappeared off the map. And I have to know what happened. The story's not done. The mystery's not solved. Not yet. I'm getting closer. I'm going to find out the truth. I just hope I can live with the truth that I find. Hey guys, it's Andrea. And thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Scenes Out of Place, Audio Edition. I hope you're enjoying how the mystery is unfolding. A special shout out to my author support and above members on my Patreon. Their continued support helps me create more episodes like this. And a quick special thank you to Call Me Miss Royalty for your continued support. If you would like to help me bring more of these episodes to life, consider joining my Patreon, where you'll get behind-the-scenes content, early access to new episodes, and other exclusive rewards. Until next time, maybe keep your eyes on the horizon, or the shore, because Blue Crab Cove is out there.